Hello and welcome to the Fantasyland Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Shorten. It has been a long time between drinks. I don't even remember when the last one I did was, and apologies for that. Life's gotten away from me a little bit of laziness as well, if I'm being perfectly honest. But 5-6 weeks out from tip-off, figured now is the best time to come back, talk about everything that has been happening in the off-season, talk about different trades, talk about different acquisitions. Obviously, we're going to talk about rookies. We're going to talk about the sophomores as well. The draft guide's going to come out in a couple of weeks as well. But to start off with, I reckon we talk about all of the different acquisitions. So, buckle up. It might be a longer one than what my previous podcasts have been, but hopefully it's all some good content for you as well. So, first and foremost, Gobert went to Minnesota. In exchange, Malik Beasley, Pat Beverly went to Utah, and obviously that all flipped as well with him going to LA. You got Walker Kessler, which I love, Jared Vanderbilt, which I love, Leonardo, Leandro Balmoro, and 4 firsts as well. So obviously the key piece here is Gobert. From a fantasy side, well, from a real life side to start off with, I think it's great. I think that this is exactly what Minnesota have needed. Cat is, as good as he is as a basketballer, and as good as he is offensively, defensively, he has become a little bit of a liability. Those defensive skills are not really on show. He doesn't really care for it either. He wants to just pick and pop and drain threes. He thinks that he's the best big man shooter of all time. So they needed somebody. They needed somebody that could sit in the hole and defend. Gobert's obviously going to do that. I don't see Gobert taking a hit at all whenever it comes to his fantasy outlook. If we think that Gobert is going to play 32, 34 minutes a night, it makes sense that about half of those are going to be staggered with Cat off the floor, which means that he's going to absolutely be able to feast and get his offensive stats. I think that I've probably used feast a little bit liberally there, but I think that there is definitely going to be a pretty strong pick and roll game with both Anthony Edwards and Gobert, as well as D'Angelo Russell and Gobert. And I don't think that he's going to really lose too much on the offensive end. His game, though, is built on the defensive end. It's built on blocks, it's built on boards, and that's what we're going to see from Gobert in this Minnesota side as well. I'll be honest, I've never been a massive Gobert guy whenever it comes to fantasy. I think that there has been... I like to go for more all-round players in the first couple of rounds of your draft. Gobert is obviously very heavily weighted towards 3, if you include field goal in that. So that has lent me to chasing boards and blocks late. But there is a real chance that you can get Gobert at a discount this year. There will be people that believe that Gobert should be going, 3rd, 4th round, which if you can get him there, then I think that is a really, really good opportunity to get somebody who is going to be a really strong fantasy asset, as he always has been, and really anchor you in a couple of different areas there. If we're looking at his overall ranking last year, we're looking at about 25, 26 overall in 9 category leagues. And if you can get him outside of that, I think that is going to be money for jam. I think that's a really good player that you should be eyeing off in that 3rd round. When it comes to Cat, obviously he's a horrible defender. So we're not really hoping that he's going to anchor his fantasy skill set on that. What we are probably going to see more of is we're going to see some more outside shots, which means that he's going to increase in triples. He's probably going to dip in field goal. But I do think that we're probably going to see an increase in points. We're probably going to see an increase in assists. I think that we're probably going to see an increase in steals as well. I like Cat as a top 5 asset. I've always liked Cat as a top 5 asset. He stays on the court as well. I don't see anything different of that. The Jared Vanderbilt side of things, I love Vando. Per 36 last year, 10 points, 12 boards, and nearly 3 stocks. So we're looking at like 1.9 steals and 0.9 blocks. And given that he's going to be a late round guy, I think that is absolute gold. I don't care that they've brought in Laurie Marketing. I think Jared Vanderbilt is somebody that is going to be somebody who plays really big minutes this year. Utah are all in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. Hope I pronounced that right. They're wanting to tank as hard as they possibly can, which means that they're going to be some sleepers in this side. Jared Vanderbilt is definitely one of them, definitely somebody I'm targeting late. The other one is rookie Walker Kessler. I feel like his name should be Kessler Walker, but it is Walker Kessler. What I really like about him is that there is a massive opportunity for him to get the start from game one, and if not, then he's going to be able to progress and get some big minutes in the second unit. The one thing that I love most is his college stats. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's only one that really matters to me, is that we're looking at 4.6 blocks per game, and that's just ridiculously exciting. I love getting my big blockers late, as I mentioned. So for me, he is somebody that I'm probably going to be reaching a little bit earlier on. But once we get around that 100, 110 point, you got to swing for the fences there, and you got to go for upside, which Walker Kessler Walker is somebody who's going to be able to produce that. Malcolm Brogdon went to Boston. I don't really know how Boston got this done. They gave away absolute pox, absolute trash in Nick Stauskas, Malik Fitz, Juwan Morgan, Daniel Tyson, Aaron Naismith. I feel like it was just them, Indiana, just trying to drop Brogdon, try and get Halliburton as much development as he possibly could, as well as Brogdon's money, getting rid of that as well. Fantasy, I think, Brogdon has always been if healthy, he's going to produce. That's never been the case. Brogdon always seems to pick up some form of an injury. I do think that coming off the bench is going to help with his longevity. He's still going to get his minutes, and I think he's still going to get his stats, but what it probably means is that he's not going to be playing a heavy workload. And even if that means that he drops 2-3 minutes a night, I'm okay with that, because it means that we're probably going to get another 10-15 more games out of him, which is exactly what we need. So Brogdon is somebody that, if he slides, I'll be targeting. If he doesn't slide and he goes around that 50-60 mark, which he seems to always go around, then no, I won't be touching him there. The guys that I mentioned about those Boston guys going to Indiana, none of them are relevant, so don't even bother with those guys. So Justin Holiday and Mo Harkless went to Atlanta. Kevin Huerter went to Sacramento. Probably get the start there as well. Probably a low-end type of guy. Somebody who's going to get you, at most, 15 points. Maybe 4 assists, maybe a steal, a couple of threes. But I don't really love him there, if I'm being perfectly honest. There are other guys that I prefer to target with more upside. Davion Mitchell is one of them. DeJounte Murray, he's over to Atlanta. Danilo Gallinari and 4 firsts. Spurs are another team that is absolutely in full tank mode. They've got a nice young core. I do like they've got, Keldon Johnson. They've got the power forward. I can't even think of his. Devin Vassell, the guard there. I like their young core. They're obviously trying to get into the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes as well, and full credit to them. Tank hard. If you're going to tank, do it right. But if we're looking at how Atlanta fared out of this, so DeJounte Murray obviously across to Atlanta, I love it. I think that, we all know that DeJounte Murray is a terrific defender. We know that Atlanta need another playmaker outside of Trey. Atlanta become too Trey-centric at times, and whenever he gets doubled, they don't really have another person to create and to score. The bringing in or the acquisition of DeJounte Murray makes a lot of sense, and I think that it's going to help both. I think it's going to help Trey probably the most. I think Trey's going to get his normal numbers, but I think he's going to do it at a higher efficiency. And then for DeJounte, what I'm really looking forward to, DeJounte was nearly a top 10, top 12 player. It was nearly a first rounder last year. And I think that we're going to get him a bit of a discount. And I don't think his stats really drop a heap. Maybe we get him as a third rounder. Maybe we get him a little bit later than that. In switched on leagues, he's definitely going to be a second rounder, a late second rounder. And yeah, his scoring is going to take a hit. I think his assists go up. He's always been really good with his assist to turnover ratio. He's always been really good as a nearly 2 steals per game type of guy. And there will be obviously concerns that, look, he's playing next to a high usage guy in Trae Young, but he's done it before and he's had good success in that. A couple of years ago, he played with DeMar DeRozan, and in that season, he still had 16 points, 7 boards, 5.5, nearly 6 assists, 1.5 steals, and still finished the 39th overall player that season. If that's his floor, then, and that's the lowest that we're going to see, like the lowest production that we're going to see, I still don't think we've seen his ceiling yet, and we probably won't this year. But if we're getting him at inside the top 40, if we're getting him 30 to 40, that'll be a steal. If we're getting him 25 to 30, I think that's probably about right. And I think that is absolutely perfect. I think it's exactly where he's going to be. So I'm all in on DeJounte again this year. I think steals, getting your assists and your steals early make for a really successful fantasy season. Steals are really tough to get late, and if you're going to get a steal specialist late in your draft, then you're going to be stuck with somebody like Pat Beverly. You're going to be stuck with, I can't even think, somebody like a DeLon Wright, somebody who is going to get you 1.5, 2 a game, but they do nothing else for you. So make sure you're getting them early. On the San Antonio side of it, I think that there is probably one major winner here. I think we're looking at Trey Jones. This could be a Trey Jones breakout season. There have been a couple of my peers in the industry that some are off him, some are on him. And look, opportunity generally equates to production, but it doesn't always. And there is still Devin Vassell there. You've still got Keldon Johnson. You've got their rookie Josh Primo, or their rookie from last year, Josh Primo. But Trey Jones had a fairly sizable sample size without DeJounte Murray on the floor. You're looking at 12 points. You're looking at 7 assists. You're looking at a steal, 51% shooting from the field, and 77% from the line. Now, I think that we're probably... I don't think those numbers are going to be 100% right. Like, I think that things will change, and he'll have ups and downs with any young player. But I think what we'll probably see is a higher scoring output with a lower percentages. I think we're more likely going to see a 15-7 with maybe just over a steal, and maybe 46 from the field and 75, 77 from the line. But again, Trey Jones is somebody that I'm targeting hard next year. He reminds me, there was a couple of years ago where we were able to get Fred VanVleet right at the end of your draft, and he was really, really handy. And I think Trey Jones he certainly has that upside, maybe not on the steals side of things, but in terms of points, in terms of assists, in terms of percentages, I think that we are looking at a breakout season for him. If I have a quick look at some of the supporting stats around that, I mean, 12-7-1, that's only in 29 minutes a night as well. San Antonio, they don't tend to go too far into their bench, and if he can get up to 34, 36 minutes a night, I think we're looking at a really big year for him as well, and somebody that you'd be able to get 75 to 80 when it comes to that ADP. Be curious to see what it looks like and see how much that gets brought in as we get closer to drafting. But I really like Trey Jones, and nobody can tell me otherwise. Will Barton and Monte Morris to Washington, KCP and Ish Smith to Denver. Not a heap there. There's some of my colleagues out there saying a Monte Morris breakout season. I just don't see it. I think the one there that excites me more than anything else will be Will Barton. He's always had a really fantasy friendly skill set. It's always been about injury. He's always gone really late in drafts as well, and you've always been able to get 14, 4, 4 with one at the end of your drafts, and I think we're probably going to see that a lot this season as well. Like, the Bradley Beal is going to be really ball dominant. Obviously, you've got Kuzma. Obviously, you've got Porzingis. You're probably going to see a bit of a breakout from Denny Avdija, but I think Will Barton is going to be a handy piece for them. They wouldn't have traded for him otherwise, and I think that we're going to see some pretty decent numbers. So, what my thoughts are: take Will Barton late, take him with your last pick, see what happens, roll the dice. If he starts to play well, starts to have a good first month, then maybe look to trade him out. Jeremy Grant went to Portland for picks, really. The Jeremy Grant, he wasn't amazing even when he had opportunity in Detroit, and this was before, obviously, you had Cade Cunningham. He wasn't amazing. His percentages hurt, and he didn't show the defensive prowess that we were all hoping. Like, a lot of people expected, like Opportunity says, you're going to have a bit of a breakout, but he didn't really show it, and he is somebody that, look, maybe is going to surprise me in a more of a secondary role or even a third role in Portland, but he's not somebody that I'm actively looking to target. Like last year, if we're looking at where he finished, I mean, I'm having to scroll a fair bit here, and obviously I know that he did miss time, but still, he's not somebody that I'm really looking at for next year. He's not somebody that I'm going to be targeting. I think that he's going to be people are going to target him higher than where he's actually going to finish, which you just don't want to be doing in your draft. So Cade Cunningham is probably the other one. It frees up usage for him. I love Cade Cunningham. I think Cade Cunningham is going to be in for a really, really big year. I could see him finishing inside the top 20. I think he's going to get a couple of really nice triple-doubles in there as well. I just think that he is an absolute stud. So Cade is somebody that I'm big on this year as well. We've got Christian Wood to Dallas. I like this for every single aspect that you could possibly ask for. Christian Wood, great. I think this is exactly what Dallas have needed. Somebody who can stretch the floor. Somebody who is a good scorer to complement with Luka. Luka was able to turn Dwight Powell into a legitimate pick and roll threat. So Christian Wood will obviously benefit from that further. He can stretch the floor, as I mentioned. Luka's going to be able to drive and kick. There is so many different permutations and so many different options for their offense now, which is really, really good to see. The concerning thing is obviously about defense. Christian Wood's not a good defender. You're probably going to see a lot of JaVale McGee. which I don't love either. As a Dallas fan, I don't love. And fantasy, I just think that if he gets drafted, I think it's just a bit silly. As long as Christian Wood stays healthy, we're really looking at a top 35 type guy, if not a little bit higher, and should be and will be drafted in the fifth round. Obviously, you need to be mindful of punting your free throws there, but if you are willing to do that, and that is a strategy that you look at, then I think that you could look at Christian Wood inside the third round. He's going to have a big year, and that's probably the thing that we need to take out the most from this acquisition. So if we're looking at, I just want to have a quick look at Christian Wood from, if we are punting our turnovers here. So we punt turnovers, not turnovers, it's not what I'm looking for. Punt and free throw. Apologies. If we're punting free throws, he's ranked inside the top 30. That's what we need to be looking at. If you're going to draft Christian Wood, make sure that you are doing a free throw tank, and then you're looking at somebody that you're going to get in your fifth round. You're going to be able to get third round value out of them. So take a look at Christian Wood whenever you kind of get to those early to middle rounds. On the flip side of that, if we're looking at the Houston side of things, a lot of people will be thinking this is going to be Alperen Sengun's season. Maybe. Is he going to be drafted earlier than he should be? I would say almost definitely. If you're a somewhat long-term listener of the podcast or follow me on TikTok, you're going to see that I've been banging the Sengun drum a lot last year. A lot of people in the industry had, and a lot of people saw the fact that he had a mini Jokic skill set. But there were obviously some glaring concerns. But the upside was obvious. Per 36, 17, 9, 4.5. Turnovers are pretty high. 3.5 compared to his 4.5. He's 3.5 turnovers per game are high compared to his 4.5 assists per game. And his free throw is pretty bad, at 71% on some decent volume. And if we look at how that translates to his per 36 stats, he's still outside the top 300. So that makes me a little bit concerned and brings me back to my initial question of if fantasy managers are going to draft him way too early, and why? Why would they do that? Obviously, you've got no Christian Wood, for one. There's no real other option at the center for your kind of second point. And probably third, and probably the more important one, is the hype train. I'll be very, very interested to see where his ADP is going to be. And I definitely think there are some leagues that he is going to be more valuable than others. Potentially leagues that have triple doubles as a category. I think that he will probably get a couple of triple doubles in there. Obviously, if you're punting free throws, it's an 8 category league and there's no turnovers, I think that his value then increases as well. But I have already resigned to the fact that I'm probably not going to get Alperen Sengun anywhere this year. I'm okay with that. Just because I'm not willing to reach in the 6th or 7th round to get somebody who I'm not concerned is going to be able to surpass that expectation and surpass that total value. The other element is that Houston, again, are not going to be very good. Yeah, they've got some good pieces in Jabari Smith. Yeah, they've got Jalen Green. But they're still not going to be good, so there's no real incentive for them to win. They want to try and get an early pick. If they can get themselves into the Wembanyama lottery, then then they may as well. So I think that we could see a shutdown at the end of the year. But yeah, there's just too many red flags for me to be all in on Sengun. He just hasn't really. He's had a couple of big games, but he hasn't really put it together enough for my liking anyway. Then the one that happened today, Donovan Mitchell went to the Cavs. Sexton Markkanen, a player whose name I don't dare try and pronounce because I will butcher it and probably get a bit of hate for it. And they got a host of picks and pick swaps going the other way as well. From a Donovan Mitchell point, I think that he's still going to feast. I'm not worried about him at all. I think that he's still going to get his good numbers. And I'm really, really excited to see what the Cavs do this year. I think they're going to be a really good team. And I think if we're looking 2 or 3 years from now, I don't even think that Mitchell or Garland are going to be their best player. I think their best player is going to be Mobley. And he could be their best player next year anyway. But yeah, Donovan Mitchell, he's going to feast. He's still going to get his numbers. Not concerned about that. I'm a little bit more concerned about Darius Garland. Garland is probably going to take a bit of a hit when it comes to his points. His assists should be fine. I think he's still going to be up there with league leaders in assists. And his assist turnover ratio is just amazing. And somebody that I am targeting hard based, almost purely based on his assist turnover ratio, which is risky. But I really like him. I do think that might mean that we get a little bit of a discount on Garland. There was a lot of thoughts about him being a second round pick, and I still think he is a second round pick this year. We might be able to get him in the third round though, or that third round turn, which I really like. So still in on Garland. I think he's the first player, the first Cav that you take off the board. Mitchell will probably go earlier than him in some leagues. He's a known commodity, but I think that those two will probably be interchangeable whenever it comes to their ADPs. Well, they should be anyway. And then on the other side, you got Colin Sexton going to Utah. So I'll be curious to see what Utah's starting 5 looks like. What do we got? We've got Colin Sexton who will play point. Malik Beasley should be the 2. Don't know who plays 3 off the top of my head. Maybe Laura Markkanen. Bojan Bogdanovic will play at the 3. At the 4, you'll either have Markkanen or Vanderbilt. My money would be on Vanderbilt based on the fact that that is a very, very weak defensive lineup. And then you've probably got Walker Kessler, who may not start game 1, but he'll be there soon enough. So really, not a lot of ball-dominant guys, and I think Sexton is somebody that could potentially fly under the radar, and you could get him a little bit later than what he should, which is why I'm eyeing him off. He's played against Garland, well, played with Garland, obviously, for a couple of years now. He was injured the year just gone, but the year before that, he was rated like 90th with 24 points, 4.5 assists, and 1.1 steals. The rest of the stats were okay. Decent percentage, but the rest of the stats were okay. I think he takes the next step up this year. I think he could be a top 50 player this season. I would not be surprised if we saw close to 30 points a game, or like 27, 28 points per game. We saw 6 assists. We saw a couple of triples. There is nothing to stop him from being There's nothing to stop him being a top 50 guy. There's nothing to stop him from being a top 30 guy. Like if we look at if we compare his stats to somebody like Anthony Edwards last year. Anthony Edwards was, I believe, inside the top 30 last year, or close enough to. The main difference is triples. Sexton averages like 1 and a bit triples per game. Anthony Edwards just absolutely bombs them. I think he was 3 and a bit last year. That's really the only thing separating the two of them on fantasy value, and being ranked a lot higher than what they should be. So I really like Sexton this year. I think he's going to have a really big year. And I think he's somebody that you'd be able to get probably in the 6th or 7th round, which could turn into a top 30, top 40, top 50 at worst type player as long as he stays healthy. So I really like that as well. The only other point that I wanted to discuss was the chatter about Russell Westbrook, about Kyrie going to the Lakers. There's rumors of Mike Conley, Bogdanovich, and Clarkson going to the Lakers as well. I think that any guard that goes to the Lakers will have a better year than what we probably think. LeBron is getting older, and he's still going to play well, and he's still going to play big minutes. But I think that he rests more games than what we have seen him. And we have learnt the hard way that Anthony Davis cannot be trusted to lead that team. So watch that space. Hope that whoever they get slides, because I think that if Mike Conley goes there, for example, I think he's going to have a bigger year than what he had last year. Kyrie Irving, if he goes there, I'm all in on Kyrie Irving. Don't care about his history. I'm all in. But yeah, that's about it. Welcome back to everybody. Thank you again for being patient with me. If you haven't already, follow us on TikTok, follow us on Instagram. Click the like and subscribe button where you are watching or listening to this. And next time, I'll be talking to you about rookies, and I'll talk to you about sophomores. We might even squeeze in a little bit of deflection to steals work as well. So, yeah, thank you. Talk to you next time.